Hey, good evening, everybody. John Henry Soto here. Welcome to JHS Interviews. Tonight, I have actor Robert F. Lyons. I am so excited to talk to Robert today. I'm actually not even gonna. I usually have a little spiel before I start. I'm not even gonna spiel today. I'm just gonna bring in Mr. Lyons. So please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to JHS Interviews. Robert F. Lyons. Mr. Lyons, how are you, sir?
Okay, John Henry. Hi.
All right. So great to have you here. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Such an honor for me to talk to you. A few years ago, you had these great videos, and it was one of the first real appreciations that I had for your amazing talent was when you were talking to actors about a scene. It was on YouTube, and you had recorded these great little pieces, little golden nuggets. And I remember just utilizing those tools as a filmmaker myself, just realizing, oh wow, that's so important. You were talking about setting up a scene and those things. So that was really my introduction officially to Robert Lyons, and so I want to thank you for those tools
Thank
because they
you.
were really fantastic.
That's nice. Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
it's my pleasure. So let's get into a little bit about where are you originally from?
it. My hometown was upstate New York, Albany. I was born and went to high school there. And right after high school, I took off and went into drama school at
Okay.
17. But I had been familiar with Manhattan and New York. I had relatives. I think I mentioned that at Port Richmond, Staten Island. So
Right.
I had some familiarity with the big city. Even my brother and I had been there as kids. We went to see D. Martin and Jerry Lewis in person as little guys.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a little overwhelming to arrive as a teenager. Uh, Suddenly you're alone. Suddenly you go, whoa, a little overwhelming, but you get through it. I don't know. That was to me as growing up is you whatever's happening, you just keep going.
Yeah, exactly. Did you always perform? Were you always thinking in your mind that you wanted to be a performer?
That's a great question because people ask me, how did you find acting or something? It was just something I don't know. There was a certain age and I just went, that's what I'm going to do. I
Wow.
cannot locate a specific time. That was just where I was going to go. Uh, there's some people have stated because as a kid, a little kid, every Saturday and Sunday we spent in the neighborhood theater.
Mm.
There was this little theater on the street I lived. And every Saturday, two movies, cartoons, cereal. And then Sunday it changed over, two more movies. And that's where you spent it for a
Yeah, yeah.
quarter,
For a
25.
quarter. Wow.
All candies were a nickel. Popcorn was a dime. It's
That's
true.
so cool. So you were there in New York for how long?
About 8 years, I did. And,
Okay.
and then, well, I was on Port Richmond, Staten Island for a while. And then I moved I did summer stock. As soon as I got out of the American Academy, I went there for like 2 seasons. And I did summer stock in Connecticut. And people out here don't know what summer stock is. That's an East Coast thing.
Right.
Out here, they don't know what you're talking about. But I did. And I did two plays right away as a kid, teenager.
Wow.
Well, Blue Denim was like a big play at the time. I did that. And then I also did Diary of Anne Frank. So I did
Oh,
two plays. I was very lucky as an apprentice to be able to get those roles. And so I had a resume. Suddenly I had a resume with some actual statistics on it. It was a great feeling.
yeah.
And I moved to the Lower East Side to answer your question, down on Orchard Street in Manhattan. It was the old ghetto, and I loved it. I mean, first of all, rents were like $50 for 3 rooms. You know,
That's
I
like
know that people are going to slap me when they say, "What you put that guy out there?" I'm depressed. $50 for 3 rooms in your own bath. And then I moved around the corner on Houston Street. And I had 4 rooms for like $68. And I lived there for years. I loved it. Uh, it was terrific. And it wasn't called the East Village then. It was the Lower East Side. That's how it was referred to.
Right.
And sometimes I worked in the village, so I would walk across the Bowery and into the village, eat a piece of pizza on the way, stop off at those produce shops where the old lady had a slice of pizza. There was always great pizza, different taste.
Yeah.
I'd have dinner on the way over, a walking pizza dinner, and then go to work as a waiter or bartender, whichever
Wow.
I could get. Yeah.
So
Used to
you,
work at the Village Gate. The Village Gate was very famous,
oh yeah.
especially during the 60s.
Yeah, yeah.
And I worked there.
Wow. The Village Gate was like the place to be. I mean, isn't that where some of the greatest Jimi Hendrix and all those guys made their
I wasn't there the night I was. There was Herbie Mann, Bill Cosby started there, uh, Flip Wilson, uh,
Mm.
even Woody Allen played there when I was there, and a lot of singers, Nina Simone. I mean, the list is
Yeah,
rather,
yeah.
extraordinary.
Yeah, I think it's a CVS now. I think if I, but there is a there's a big sign that says where it was. It's like located on the building or something.
It was the bottom of a old hotel. I mean, it was
Oh,
all black. It looked like Hitler's bunker down there. I mean, it was just huge. We loved it. Yeah.
so so at what time when you were down there, what like at what point did you actually look at, okay, I got this resume now. I've done these two plays. I'm gonna go to the next thing. Like what was the next thing that you decided to go in?
Well, that's a great question because at first, acting was not like solidly there. I didn't quite understand it. Sometimes you could do it, and sometimes you couldn't. I didn't understand it.
Oh,
And uh, a friend of mine had heard about this guy named Arthur Storch. We said, "Who is this guy?" He said, "He teaches. He's a member of the studio," and that was always an exciting thing. Member of the actor studio. It was a one-time goal.
yeah.
Excuse me. So we went and started studying with him, and much to my surprise, it was exactly what I was looking for. But I didn't know that.
Mm.
And he's the kind of teacher, Arthur, who was really terrific. He was also a Broadway director. Um, he just had a way with you. He was not an insulting man. He was quite an intellectual, very well read, and he just knew what to tell you to do to get
Mm.
that naturalness and to get you to relax and just be yourself and talk. So we would do scenes, and instead of worrying about the super emotional charged scenes, he said, "Don't worry about that now. Just get some basics in of really looking, talking." And at first that sounds ridiculous, but you begin to realize that's not an easy thing to do.
Right, not on command, right?
You want me to talk? And we did improvisations, and little by little it was fine. And it was like, wow. And you could feel that you were grounded, that you were starting to get the acting you had always thought that you
Mm.
could be. And to me, it was just exciting. And you just challenge yourself to take on bigger demands and bigger demands. And he was terrific.
Do you think if you would have gone somewhere else, it might have been a different situation depending on the personality that was in front of you? Because there's so many different ways to go about it.
Yeah, there's always that. I have a whole thing. In fact, I have a little thing called "Some Confusions About Acting," and it's on the net. I wrote it up because of I taught acting for years out here. I was only going to do it for a couple of years, but the demand became great, and I loved doing it. I love to see actors win. I've started some actors whose careers are doing quite well, frankly, and I enjoy that I had a part in it, and that to just watch people grow right in front of you with something that seems very difficult. And actually, it's simple. You got to get them down to just seeing it's actually simple. It's like
Mm.
getting you to do on stage what you're already doing in life, which is like to
Mm.
open up your awareness and just look around a little and say, hey, just find ways to get out of yourself and out of your own way. I think that's one of the ways to describe acting. How do you
Right.
get somebody to get out of their own way so that they can get back to just being real as themselves, just talking, being real? People say that's not acting. You say, yeah, it is. That's the style today, anyway. And that doesn't mean you can't have passion and roles that are very demanding, which I finally arrived at. I think if you look at my body of work, I did some outrageous characters. I mean, just,
Mhm.
or did I just learn from Arthur mainly? Hey, bust it open, really
Right.
find things that you can do because, like motion pictures, when I started doing television, and because I did some stage, I did Broadway, I did a Broadway play, I did off Broadway, I did Sam Shepard's first play, Cowboys, with another New York actor who was a friend of mine, Kevin Kevin O'Connell, his name was. He's gone now, and we had more fun doing these plays of the absurd. That was theater of the absurd downtown. There was
Hmm.
Cafe Mama. There was we were at the church downtown in the Bowery. That's where we did his first play, and
Hmm.
then he got such good notice on his plays. We did one of his over at Cherry Lane, so it was fun. I mean, these plays that didn't seem to make much sense, but they were funny. They were absurd. Theater of the absurd.
Right.
If you were looking for some deep, dark significance of why am I doing this play, it was simple. It's absurd. It's
Right.
about the absurdity of life,
That's the reason.
and just do it and have fun and be absurd. If
Right.
you look at that now, that how that would have been such an easy way to have approached it because we're looking for some philosophical reason for doing this. So we used to say to Sam, now we got the play right here. What is this a play about? He's not just two guys having fun. That was his mark, but he was a kid, 19 years old.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, he's gone now.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you about those because you mentioned a lot of different characters and you go from one extreme to the next. I know you were in the the Todd Killings, I believe it was, and um, and then you go and you do something like a TV series, where you playing these really different characters. If you were like on Bonanza or if you were on I Dream of Jeannie or one of these shows where all the characters are really quite different. Is that where the training really comes in for you, like, or is it just something that you just find it so much fun?
That's a great question. There was something about Paul Muni as a kid. I said, well, the guy really changes. And not all actors change. A lot of actors are exactly the same for a while. I mean, if you watch Bogart, it's not much change. It's
Right,
Bogart,
right.
and that's fine. I'm not putting it down. But there was a whole thing of being able to do people that you're not.
Hmm.
And I don't know. As a kid, uh, I had relatives in the country. I had relatives in New York. Then had the city that I grew up with, and each one of those communities were different. People were different. I was like,
Ah.
what the hell is the? How can people 80 miles away in the country live and talk differently and act differently? I was like, as a kid, I was like trying to grasp it, and it made me wonder, and it made me just look. And I think acting a lot is just mimicry.
Hmm.
You really, if you can mimic it, you can be it. You can see it, you can do it.
Yeah.
And once you have the basics of doing stage and you feel confident that just of a lot of technical things
Yeah.
and having a feeling for yourself, you gotta take care of yourself. I'm not saying have sympathy. I'm saying, hey, take care of yourself. Feel
Right.
good about yourself. You've accomplished things. Take care. Hey, you've accomplished something in a very tough field.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of toughness because I think there's a lot of false information.
Yeah, I think that's probably something that's been going on for quite some time, and it's still out there, you know. And I even talk to some actors that should I sign up for this thing or should I sign up for that? And I'm always saying, if you have to pay an agent or a manager upfront money, there's a pretty good chance that you're getting ripped off, you know,
Don't
because
do it. It's
you know,
nonsense.
yeah,
That's crazy. No, you don't pay someone to send you up.
yeah,
Sort of the college industry started out here some 10, 12 years ago, where casting directors, when I first got out here, there were very few theaters, very, very few in Southern California. But I would go to plays and I would see casting directors that I had met, and there they were looking for actors and what have you. Or, is there anybody new here? And then suddenly years and years go by, and now they have a lot of acting classes where a casting director is there. You come in and you get a 2-page scene and you go over it, and these kids are acting, and some of them are not ready for that. They're just not ready. And a casting director, a lot of them are not teachers.
right,
Boy, someone's going to hear this and I'm going to get shot at. They're not. They're not grounded in all it takes to teach from the bottom up. A lot of them I do know they did have theater training. That's a fact. And you can tell the difference from their notes.
hmm,
You want to say or they were actors at one time. So that they had a sense. And I know a couple that were, in fact, actors. So casting director out here, I won't mention the person's name, but studied with me for a while
hmm,
and happened to be a very good actress. So I know that some of them up, and their whole taste and their whole approach of looking and deciding is very different.
hmm,
Those are important people, and to get them on your side, absolutely. But to go in and without knowing what you're doing and audition, you're just losing a friend.
yeah. Let's talk about that because auditioning has been one of those things where I've always asked and I'm always curious about it because it's such a strange thing.
Yeah, it
You know,
is.
you
It's all
go in, you stand in front of people, and you have a couple of lines, and suddenly you're supposed to do this thing. So, tell me one of your auditions that maybe you really had to fight for, or something that you really wanted, and you went in and you really had to work on it a little bit differently than a normal audition, or
I could write 10 books on it because, first of all, when I first got out here, in New York, you'd come out and they'd say your name next, and you come out into a big dark stage with what they call a ghost light. And
Mhm.
you'd yell out into a black hole your name, and they go, okay, do your thing, and you do it. And here, sometimes they wanted to talk to you, and I couldn't talk. I didn't want to talk. I was all ready to do the scene. So I hated it when I went in and went, well, tell us about yourself. Oh, yeah, geez, you know, we'll do the scene and talk later is what I really wanted. But I think I had a chip on my shoulder about it because I realized sitting out once and feeling that terrible feeling coming over me. Oh no, it's gone. They're gonna ask questions and I'm gonna lose what I'm gonna do. And then I suddenly saw myself and started laughing. And I said, look, I'm laughing at myself because I realized I was shy. I never wanted anyone to see my shyness. This
Oh,
is
interesting.
hysterical. And I said, that's all it is. I had some idea that you're supposed to be this and that. And I started to laugh. So when I got inside, I'm laughing. They said, how are you? And I said, well, I'm fine. I'm just sitting out there having fun. And they're laughing now. And I was really relaxed because I didn't realize that I was shy. And I didn't want people to see that. I had some false idea that you're supposed to come in the room and be this and be that. I'm like, wow. Because I didn't really train to do auditions. Does that make sense?
Sure,
It
sure.
wasn't a, it wasn't a training then in New York
Right.
to do.
It's
And
not like now where you can take all these different online courses and seminars and workshops on just auditioning. That wasn't around,
no. In fact, I started teaching it out here.
right? You started it.
Maybe, I don't know. I was one of the, this is going way back, late 70s, early 80s. to do some of that because it was such a traumatic experience for so many people. They would lose it, and you could see them coming through the door. You're going, wow. It's there's no real magic. It's just getting up. The courage. Courage melts everything. You know, it just does.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I don't know, you just get a hold of yourself and you say, that's it. I had to do that in New York as a kid. I went and auditioned for something and I did so badly and I knew what to do and I wasn't doing it. And I think a lot of, and I got overwhelmed. I was very angry with myself. I was very young. But I grabbed a hold of myself and I said, that's it. That's it. You go to class and you get done what you've got to get done. And I would start a scene, and if I felt any of that back off, or like, that's it, I'm here, I'm not going away. And I did that until I could stand there and handle myself and all this odd stuff coming at me. And then I started to get jobs.
What do you know?
Yeah, I grabbed myself and I said, knock it off. You knock this nonsense off. I think I used other words, but you know what I'm saying.
So isn't that funny that you're out there trying to find or try to work on this craft, and really what it is you have to kind of work on yourself first before you can actually get there.
Yeah, I think that's a nice way of putting it, you know?
Yeah. So do you think that, I mean, was that something that you ran into a lot early on, or did once you caught yourself and you grabbed yourself, you said, this is it, you were pretty good from that moment forward?
It was up and down, but I kept going to that sense of like getting a hold of myself. When I found out, but the more I understood the script and the more I understood my audition, the number of times I've gone over, because to me, you arrive at a standard, a level where it's got to be right. It's got to be good. And how long it takes to get there is how long it takes to get there.
Right.
We can talk about that. I think I mentioned earlier that like I had a kid in a cold reading class, and he was reading it 4 or 5 times, and he's upset he wasn't doing it well. I should have gotten it. And what do you mean? He said, well, I went over this cold reading 2 or 3 pages. So I went over it 4 or 5 times. I said, what's that got to do with it? He said, well, I should have had it in 4 or 5 times. I said, really? I said, you do it until you get it the way that you know it's going to win. We used to have another thing. We used to tell him, and he thought I was nuts. I said, once you get in there and you know what you're doing, don't leave the room. He said, what? I said, don't leave the room. What do you mean, don't leave the room? The audition's over. I said, don't leave the room. I said, what are you doing? I said, get the part. You're there to get the part. Don't leave the room. And they looked at me like, what are you, nuts? I said, no. You know, first of all, if you're not doing it right, tell them. I want to start over.
You need a little bit of that audacity, don't you, for this business, don't you? I mean, you have to have, it's not arrogance, it's this confidence, like you mentioned earlier. You really do need that, a certain level of that, right?
I think a lot of it. John, the second movie, which was the third part in a movie I did called Getting Straight, for Richard Rush, I went in and I must say I screwed up. I wasn't as well prepared as I knew I should have been. And when we finished reading, I said, that was crap. I said, I haven't had the script that long. I said, give me the script for a few days and let me come back. Now I'll tear the backside of this. I really will. And he looked at me kind of like, well, all right, kind of reluctantly. And I dashed out of there. I was out of there, and I got on it, and I did everything I knew I should do. And when I came back, the lead in the film was now auditioning, Elliot Gould. And we went to town. We knocked over a couch and everything else in this room. And suddenly he became excited about this. Is good. I don't know where that was in the film because things had changed and the writing had changed. But I got the part, and it set me up for a lot of other roles.
Yeah.
And just to tell you one other thing about this whole business, and I tell actors, listen, you meet people who are secretaries today, make friends, learn to make a friend out of it, not being phony. I mean, if there's somebody you don't like, you don't like. But if you can be a friend, don't discard them. Don't treat them like they're only secretaries. Don't do that. I said, that secretary is going to be running a studio.
Right.
If you
You know,
think that her final goal is to just be there, it ain't.
right.
And I said, you never know who's got someone's ear.
That's
Okay,
right.
so part of what happened was, on Getting Straight, was there was a gal who was the secretary to Richard Rush. Her name was Sheila Murphy. God bless her. She had seen my first film at a drive-in. She takes her dog because that's the way she had to go see movies. She had a dog. And she fell in love with me. A film called Pendulum was my first film. And she met me and she said, I told him about you. You have to do this part. And so here's somebody that's a secretary. Well, she pushed and promoted and pushed and pushed while I'm doing auditions. He got to the point he said, if you mention his name again, I will not take it. So when she would go in the room, she'd do this.
That was the sign.
He finally went, call him, bring him down. They were already in location in Oregon. And it was a thrilling. It was my second film. And it
I was
was
going to ask you about that. Yeah.
amazing.
How
So
was that experience? Because that was such a great film. That was George Papard, right?
no, the first one was Papard.
Right.
That was Pendulum.
Pendulum, right?
Yeah, for Columbia Studios. Papard, Richard Kiley, who was a
Yeah.
wonderful, just absolutely wonderful
Yeah.
actor. He was terrific to work with. And Papard, we just became friends.
Yeah.
You know, we became good friends. Was it tough to work with? There's always those stories, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a little thing at one moment, and that got cleared away, and we went on and became really good friends, actually. Because I worked with him again when he had A-Team. I did a guest shot on his show called
Oh, okay.
T and Mr. T.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, the wonderful thing about Pendulum, the first film, was like I was ready. I had everything down. I knew what I was doing. I had done a couple of TV shows now, and I had been under contract to Screen Gems.
Hmm.
Supposed to do a 5-year contract. I got a pink slip after 6 months, so I know what it's like to get in, and then okay, you're out. Well, okay, I'm out. The reason I was in and out was I was the serious actor out of 6 of us that did screen tests. But I mean, real screen tests, the old style. You come in with the crew, you rehearse the scene, you got actors, you do, a screen test. And I was one of 6. But Screen Gems at that time did Bewitched, I Dream of Jeannie, Flying Nun, and these half-hour comedies that in the 60s. You know, it was not my style.
Hmm.
But there was one guy there, a director named Swackhammer. He said, yeah, but if we do a Western, take that guy. So I found out he was the one that insisted to take me. 6 months later, I'm out. And I went, okay, I'm out. So now I'm running around trying to get parts, talking to friends. My ex-roommate, who was a wonderful actor, who did several series. There was a wonderful series called High Chaparral, which was a spin-off of Bonanza.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And his name was Mark Slade. He played Blue, with these
Hmm.
blue eyes. That was the character on High Chaparral. Well, we went to school together as kids. He was out here first. When I first got out here, he was my roommate, and he got a part on Bonanza because the producer, a man named Dortort, lovely man, said, "Look, we got to keep you busy until we get the series on." So they gave him a part, and it was for a twin brother, and he mentioned me. So I went in, and we ran it, and Dortort gave it to me, but I was under contract with Screen Gems, and they wouldn't let me do it. I cannot tell you how upsetting it was to get this big part, and I can't do it. I mean, I was just like, I can't tell you. As a kid, it was just so disappointing.
Yeah.
You know, your heart is in it. Your heart is in it. And the only thing I can tell you, I don't care what, keep going. You just cannot make a victim out of it. Is that you have to pick yourself up and keep going.
Right. I was going to ask you that when you're in between things like that, where those that ebb and flow of the actual business,
Yeah.
what do you do to kind of stay motivated when things are just not, especially something like that where you had this opportunity to do that and this organization just didn't allow you to do it?
Well, I think there's a few things, but the main thing was the actor studio out here was starting up, and I could become not a member, but I could do scenes there and what have you, and meet people, what have you. So I did that and worked there, and could watch other actors and learn. And there were a lot of good actors there at the time. A lot of character actors that some of them are gone now, but they were terrific. Uh, some very big names would come in and do work or just make comments, big time directors. So it was exciting to be around it and keeping the interest there and keeping the dream alive,
Mm.
doing what the dream says until you get to that goal and
Yeah.
get those parts. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
And I would work. I didn't bum around. I always had a job as a waiter or a bartender.
Yeah.
When I first came out to California as a kid, I went to 72 bars nonstop
Wow.
on a scooter until I got a job. It took me only a few days, and I
Wow.
got a job right on Sunset Boulevard. So I had a job right away. I was making money, and so that keeps you responsible and that keeps you involved. And it was a nighttime job, so I had my days free.
Right. Right.
Now the
That's
other
the
side of
beauty of
it, yes. And in the '60s, there were a lot of westerns on. There were more westerns than cop shows. So you had
I
to
was
know.
going to ask you, we have a question here, actually, not to cut you off, but Franco says, speaking of Westerns, talk about Shootout with Gregory Peck.
Yeah.
So, in that vein, what you were saying.
Well, just before that, the first part I got was I went out for a western called The Loner with Lloyd Bridges. And New York actors were at a premium at the time. They were really at a premium because there weren't that many good teachers out here,
Hmm.
not like New York. Anyway, that was the feeling. So they said, "You're from New York, you got the job." I didn't even audition. I'm like, what? But the director said, "Horses, do you know how to ride?" I went, "Yeah," which was the only lie I ever told. You know, and boy, I got to tell you, that that cost me big time because they put me on a horse that was so big I had no idea. So suddenly, all my acting went out the door. Can I handle this ton of horse?
Just trying to survive.
Well, he scattered the crew. I mean, I could not control it.
Oh,
And
no.
oh no, on top of that, they took the horse away and put me on a stepladder. And you're up high, so they can shoot and frame the stepladder. So I thought this was an embarrassment. This is what they do. But I found out later on they do that all the time.
Yeah, they put
I didn't
people
know
up.
that this was the first time I'm on a set. I got this job when I was out here 2 weeks. That was the first job. And I cannot tell you how humiliating that was to be on a ladder and doing a Western, which, it's just. And Lloyd Bridges was terrific because people were upset with me because obviously I couldn't ride.
Right.
And it became very obvious. So my friends out here, they would take me out until I could feel very confident. I mean, I'd grab a horse and say, "You're going to do what I say." I mean, I got to that point and get
Nice.
on because they all want to go back to the barn. those horses you rent for $10 an hour back then. They're
Yeah.
what I call barn sour. So the horses that they had for the studio are very, very ready to go. These are
Mm.
not barn sour. These are trained horses to go. So
Yeah.
the only one humorous thing, and including shootout. On a gallop, I cannot keep my feet in the stirrups. I don't know what it is. They just will not stay in that stirrup. It's hysterical. I cannot do that still, but I can ride. And I've even done a couple of stunts and galloped on them. But my feet are always going to come out of those stirrups. I'm not
Oh,
Gary Cooper on a horse. Let me put it like that.
right.
It's not my thing. And but you get through that period. It's like out here, you have to be able to drive many different kinds of vehicles
Hmm.
because you have to know how to pull up to a camera and stop.
Right.
I don't care if it's a car, a truck, even the big tractor trailer I had to drive.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Isn't it interesting that when you're studying and you're in class and you're doing all these things, and then you get to an actual film set and you have all the physicalness. Now you have to keep in what you studied in your training and now do all this physical stuff. And how's that experience? Is that something that when you're teaching when you were teaching or when you were in front of the camera, how did you handle that?
Well, I learned is that whatever it is, like they ask now, can you ride? Can you ride a motorcycle? If you can't, get on and do it. Get a friend that has a motorcycle and do it. I've done it.
Mm.
I did two chips. One I didn't have to worry about. The second one I did because I'm a guy that owns a motorcycle shop. And it was the one where one of the leads, Erica Strata, wasn't there. And who plays my younger brother at the time? Bruce Jenner, who is now not Bruce Jenner,
Right.
played my brother at one time. Yeah,
Oh, that's funny.
yeah, it's a little piece of Hollywood,
A little Hollywood trivia.
a little trivia there. She was my brother. That's how I put it.
Yeah.
And at that time, that had to do with motorcycles. So we went out on motorcycles and had some actors that they lived on them. So that just had to get the feel of it. So you don't look like a prop on a prop,
Right.
so you have some ownership of these things. And
Exactly.
but I think anytime you have more time on a feature, usually, to do that kind of homework. That if you are a driver of a certain kind or you're on horses all the time, then you're going to have to do that because the acting is going to fly out of you if you don't feel comfortable
Mm.
and confident with now the physicalization of having to drive something or keep that horse going, feeling comfortable on it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
I can dive off a 10-foot board. I've done it. I'm just not that great at it. Now, suddenly I'm doing a movie, Todd Killing. I'm diving off a 10-foot, bouncing up. That's another 4 or 5. You hit that water, it's like your head hits cement.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're doing.
You got to know
So
what you're doing on that.
you can find people to help you with that or start off on a 3-foot board and work up.
Yeah.
So do it on certain grades until you've got the confidence because then you can keep the acting in. It all becomes a part of the acting.
Right.
That
You,
physicalization of what you do is important. It is really important.
yeah.
Keeping yourself in shape, keeping yourself healthy. There's a lot of work to acting. There's a lot
Right.
of work to it. You
Yeah, because it's
know?
very physical. People don't realize how physical it is because you can be on set for 18 hours sometimes if that's just a production and they have to get stuff done. And physically you really need to be in shape. You need to really stay there. Um
Yeah, yeah. When you see scenes like in Robin Hood, you see Errol Flynn doing that, and
yeah.
that wonderful British actor who wrestled, what's his name, Basil Rathbone. He would
Yeah.
choreograph. He would play the bad guy, and they would. I mean, they're going upstairs, downstairs, falling down, falling over, stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like learning a whole dance routine.
Yeah.
I mean, that's learning a whole dance thing and knowing when to strike where. Are you kidding? It's exhausting.
It is. doing it
We
over
all
and
know.
over.
You just have to say to guy, put a foil in your hand. You've never had one, and say, okay, this is the scene. And suddenly you realize they don't know a damn thing about it. That they're
What
not.
advice? Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's just they're going to have to learn that, and then put
Right,
the act, and then
right,
put the act to it.
exactly.
So there
So
are
what?
some things that have an excessive use physically. They
Hmm.
do. It's excessive. But if it's part of the scene, part of the period, you're going to have to do it if
Yeah.
you're going to do those
Well,
type of things.
do you think that sometimes the desperation of an actor would say, "Yes, I can do that," if because they just want to get that gig? I
Absolutely.
mean, but the advice that you would give would be like, because you know things are moving really fast, so it's really difficult to go into a when you're auditioning and they say, well, can you ride a motorcycle? We say, well, no, but my friend has one. I can learn how to ride one in a couple of days. Are they going to want that? No, right? So
Right.
but in your head, if you know that you can do that, what should
Yeah,
you do at that point?
no, I'll do it. Yeah, I can do it.
You say
I
yeah.
can, sure.
Yeah. You got it. Yeah, because I would say I can do it. I just need a
And
couple of
then do
days.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying if you have no time, if you say we start at 6 o'clock, don't tell them, yeah, I can do it. No,
Right, right.
just don't do it. Just don't do it.
Yeah, yeah. We have
It's
a
sensitive.
message here from Ethan. Robert Lyons, inspiring actor, master of his craft. Agreed. Thank you, Ethan, for your
Right.
comment. And we have Lester Green saying, good question. Thank you, Lester. I appreciate that.
What was the question?
It must have been one of the questions I asked you earlier, and I don't
Oh,
remember what it
yeah,
was.
yeah,
But apparently it
yeah.
was a good one, so I'm glad it was.
Uh,
So let's talk a little bit about. I want to turn the tables a little bit to training and to the actual craft and the actual study of actors that are out there. And with what's currently happening right now in the world, everybody's home right now. What is one of the things that you would recommend to an actor at home right now who can't really get out to audition? Maybe you can do a video auditions that are becoming popular now, but what else should they be working on?
well, I do do a monologue, learn it. And today, because everyone's got one of these things. There's some people making movies with their iPhones. Put it on camera. Look at it. What can you do to improve it? I mean, what that you've been trained with, that you know. There's an interesting book called Audition. It was about a very well-known New York casting director, Michael Shurtleff, and he had a wonderful piece of advice in there, which was for this interview thing, which I never heard of until later on, is that learn when someone says, "Well, who are you and where are you from?" Learn a monologue about yourself that you
Mm,
know so well that you just go into, and not like a robot. Well, I this, but you have certain interesting points that you can say, and you never say, "Well, I did a small part here, and I did only a 2 line." Don't do that. I did a nice part on this. I had a part on that, and last week I did a television show. You don't go small this, small. Don't ever.
yeah, don't minimize your abilities or what
Or
you've done.
martial arts. Never do that. Just tell them you weren't working. That's not a lie. That's the truth.
Right,
You don't have to. Oh, yeah, don't make a victim out of it,
right.
or that I'm cheap or I'm small. You have to have big dreams. You got to have large, just huge. Go for it.
Yeah.
Expect that of yourself.
So
Expect that of yourself.
yeah, we've had actors, and that's something I hear a lot, not just from entertainment, but also from just life in general. Like really think big. And
Absolutely.
talk a little bit about that with acting. Like how is the New York City actor who's coming in and just starting out? What how sometimes it's a little difficult because it's really daunting. And Lester Green reminded me that the question was about when I said about how draining acting is. So actors are out there getting drained, basically tired, running around. Thinking big is a difficult thing sometimes.
I not to counter you, John Henry. I First of all, you have an imagination. Just let it fly. Be as big as you can. I don't think it's draining. To answer that more clearly, I think the larger you make it, the greater you're trying to say, I can do it.
Right.
To go back to my first acting class with Storch in New York after the academy, a friend of mine, he said, I don't want to just get notes. I want to be compared to Marlon or this or that. And I thought, what a great idea, because then you'll be compared to those guys. And I thought, yeah, I don't want to just be compared to the guy who does 4 lines. That's not my expectation. But that helped me set my goals that I then, after I could get my basics in and feel confident, I went, okay, I got to be able to do the rage and the anger and sustain it for an entire thing. I have to take bigger, demanding, emotional pieces and sustain it.
Mm.
And I went, well, okay, that actor can do that. I can do it.
Yeah.
There's my confidence. So you took each thing, one thing at a time, and you bang it out until you achieve it. Now you got a success. So if you just keep going with each goal in your acting class, you've achieved a success. You get the idea that you can be successful in what you are achieving. You set a goal and you obtain it. You just work however hard it is. I know I had to grab myself. I literally grabbed myself. It was either, look, I didn't have any other skills. I didn't care to do anything else. And 9 to 5 wasn't going to work for me. It just wasn't going to work.
Right.
So I set my sails. It's this. It is this. So when it's not going right, it's not like, oh, I should have done that. I never thought that way. Well, how can I make myself better? Bigger, better, faster. And what helped me with that, there was a director out here named Bob Totten. And I would go up for him, and he did a lot of Westerns. And I'd audition for him. And those days, there were no cameras in the room or anything like that. And he said, okay, you're good. Not this one, though. And he brought me in again, and I did the thing. He said, you're a very good actor. This isn't the role, though. And I go, Jesus Christ. When's it the right role?
Right.
Then he brings me in for another Gunsmoke. And I walked in the door, and he said, Lyons, excuse me, you don't get this one. We both ought to quit. So I know he liked me. I mean, he keeps bringing me back.
Right.
And it was a Gunsmoke. It was a big part.
Mm-hmm.
And it had to do with, the scene had to do with washing clothes out of the brook and doing some scheming thing to get this guy. And I got on the floor and I did it. I didn't ask or anything. I just did it.
Nice.
And I went, thank you very much. I got home and I said, go back. You have to get your wardrobe. I cannot tell you the thrill, the excitement. I'm going to do Gunsmoke, a show I watched growing up with my dad. This is going to be fun. Just fine. So, and it was a big part and very demanding. And I met the demands and I was thrilled. I was just thrilled. I finally have a guest star. There it is. And people see it. And then you see it and you go, yeah, okay. Now you can look at your work and correct it. Nah, it's overdone there, a little stronger. And you're looking at your work and you have the ability to correct it.
Yeah.
You look at it and say, what do I want to do?
Yeah. So
little by little, you're confident. Huh?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna ask you, the next day after something like that airs, is it like different for you? Like, are you recognized more? Because Gunsmoke was a huge, huge show, and you had a big part in there. Was that something the next day? What's life like?
Yeah, your friends, you want to know. Yeah, I saw it. Hey, man, good. You look good. You did this, that. I like that moment. So now you start talking like an actor. What was that moment? What's that special little moment you did? I'll tell you, because there's a film I did called Ceasefire. and with Don Johnson. And one of my students, by the way, played his wife, Lisa Blount, who died at a very young age, a wonderful gal, wonderful actress. And she's wonderful in this film called Ceasefire. We had a drunken scene. We were so drunk that I did a thing, and I had a cigarette that wasn't lit, right? And we did the whole scene, and then I put the cigarette out like it had been
lit.
And you'd be surprised. I only think one actor caught it. I said, that thing wasn't lit. Otherwise, nobody. I said, you didn't see it? No, I didn't know. I said, okay. Wow, I stuck it in there. Never took a drag. It wasn't lit. I took a whole fresh cigarette and put it out like I'd been smoking it. That I was so drunk. And I thought, nah, that's a moment. But I guess it wasn't that even actors weren't catching the fact that the cigarette wasn't lit. And I'm thinking, well, man, that's a cool moment that you came up with. Yeah, it's like, oh, it's funny. It's just part of the fun.
Yeah, I love that. And let's talk about those moments, like when you're in a scene and you realize you want to, it's not on the script, but you know that this is going to work. And you take that risk. And not so much in auditions. Let's just say the audition process has been done. You're chosen. You're the guy. And now you have a director there looking at you, and you know your lines. But now you want to take some kind of risks and stuff.
Well, okay. One of the things to mention is that, you're doing all the stuff and you're talking philosophy and moments and everything in a class. You get on the set, you'd be surprised. How many directors just say, okay, you move from there to there. Let's just do the lines. Okay. All right, let's shoot it. And you're waiting for these deep moments of philosophy.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that was good. Let's do it again. I'm telling you, most of the time, that's all you get.
Really?
Especially for TV, there's no time to discuss this stuff.
That's
true. Are you kidding? 60 pages? 60 pages? That's why they take actors who can work. And they depend on, like a lot of directors will ask for you again. I had several directors that I worked with several times. Why? Because they knew I'd come in, I'd have my stuff, I'd have my lines, and I'd give them something a little extra. They could depend on it.
Right.
That's what you look for that actor who can give you something that seemingly isn't on the page. But if you know how to study it and break a script down, which is my thing, I can tear it apart. I just come up with ideas. It's just about ideas. Yeah. And then fulfilling those ideas with the acting. It's like in that first film I did, Pendulum, they cut me loose. He'd give me a note. I didn't get a note. But there was a scene where I play a bad guy. I play the guy, killer, rapist. And we're in court. A lot of the scenes in the beginning of the film have to do with court and a jail cell in back of the court. I don't know if ever you saw it. It's called Pendulum. Mm-hmm. And there was a scene where I say, Elias, I got to go to the bathroom. So he didn't have to go to the bathroom. He just went in to start an argument with Papard, who was the cop who arrested him. So then the cop says, don't throw the papers on the floor. Well, there is no bathroom scene. Okay? So then one of my lawyers and Papard have a scene, and they're talking. And I said to the producer, boy, I wish they had that bathroom there. He said, what do you mean? His name was Stanley Niss, a lovely man. He's gone now. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, if we had a bathroom here, you could see what a snot this kid is that he walks in, he sees the paper, he's leaning on the wall, he didn't have to go to the bathroom, he just starts throwing it all over. And he says to me, yeah, you like that. He said, I have some of this stuff, we can do that. I said, yeah, Stanley, I'd love to do that. He said, all right, we'll build a wall there for you and you can do it. Wasn't in the script.
Wow.
It's in the movie now.
Yeah. So there you go.
Well, it's an idea. And that's one of the things that after a while you impress actors are so worried about their emotions. I now teach to get the intelligence of the piece, get the intelligence of the scene, get the purpose of the scene. Don't worry so much about crying and getting angry. You will do those things. You will do those things.
Wow.
There's too much with me with teacher. How do you feel? How do you feel? Jesus Christ! Stop it! People don't
Right.
walk around like that.
Right.
You don't get on a bus and look at someone. How do you feel? How do you feel? How do you feel? You don't. It's not
Right.
normal dialogue.
Right.
No, you're
Just
talking about what's going on. I'm sorry, John.
no. You go ahead. No, it's this is great. I just wanted to ask you about in Pendulum, Jean. I think it was Jean Seberg. I think her
That's
name was.
correct. Yeah.
She was amazing. She's just so. She's like one of the reasons why originally when I saw Pendulum was because I saw her in something else and I wanted to see some of her work, and then I saw that film. Did you get to know her?
No, she was kind of a person who was sort of had her own kind of world going. It was like very social, high band, but not. There was never
Yeah.
any. No, not with her.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I know a little bit about her story, which is kind of
Sad,
fascinating.
very sad
Yeah,
ending.
very
I
sad
mean,
ending. And little.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
she was
yeah, I
right
didn't
up.
want to. Yeah. Yeah.
There was a whole campaign against her politically, and she died in Paris. They
Right.
found her.
Like in '79, mysteriously, right?
No, it was
Some.
suicide. I think that's what they at least. Uh, I think that's what came up. She was a
Oh,
beautiful
really?
woman.
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, so now you know you take these risks on in these films and you met with directors. Is it have you had a director before that you just thought yeah I can't do what you're asking me to do, or it's the wrong decision? Because you said a lot of them just kind of come in and don't give you too much meaningful direction. But are there some directors that do give you some direction that you felt maybe was not the right direction?
I've had a couple times like this before we actually got much done that they gave you a concept that just took me through the whole film.
Mm. Oh, okay. Okay.
Twice that happened, and they were very important things. Because
Mm.
I was going in one direction, and for Todd Killing, he had a whole other concept. And I went, okay, good. I could go that way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I did. It was a very smart play. I thought
Okay.
in both cases, those were excellent notes, but they were the generality before we actually did anything.
Hmm.
In Getting Straight, I did the first scene, which is my first scene in the movie. And we did a rehearsal, and Richard Rush said to me, I had this line where Elliot Gould says to me, "Hey, Nick, you got the money you owe me." And my line was something like, yeah, I've got it written down. So, and I thought it was a definite put off. And he said, Richard's a funny guy. He looked around and he went, it's kind of like, it's the greatest idea in the world that you owe Harry Bailey money. And I thought, what a fabulous idea. Yeah, well,
Mm.
I played the guy stoned throughout the movie. I mean, he's just stoned.
Oh,
And that
gee.
was what that was about. In 1969, we shot that up in Oregon in August of '69. And that he was a stoner. That's what was going on. There were those
Right.
guys that were like, they were into pot every day of their life or whatever.
Yeah.
So that worked. And that gave me the idea of the character for the entire film. It's like, oh, yeah, this is great. My own money. Wow. And I thought, I never had a thought about that. And I thought that was an excellent directorial. Um,
Note.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there were a couple. Listen, there was another director. I never understood a damn thing. Uh, I didn't understand what he meant. He just kept saying energy, kid, energy. And I didn't know what the hell he meant. I couldn't get him to sit down and say, when you say energy, well, what are you saying? It's too much of a generality.
Right.
I can cut energy down to 50 different slices here. What are you? I always thought he wanted me to be wild. If he had just said wild, yeah, okay. I would have been able to physicalize it. But to just yell energy, I didn't. Are you talking lines? Are you talking physicalization? And he's a great director, Henry Hathaway.
Mm.
I mean, he did True Grit.
Right.
He's the one that did that famous movie. What was it? Deadly something with it was um, the actor who played Tommy Udall in this terrible, terrible movie. Richard Widmark. It's his first role, where he played this psychotic. He said to me, "Kid, you know who he is?" So I went, "Yeah." He said, "I discover him. You remind me of him." And I thought, Grace, now I'm a maniac. And, but he wanted me, and he took me. There's certain moments I like it, but there's other moments I feel it's not my style of acting. I'm out of my usual range and my style.
Right. So we have some friends that are saying hello. Here's Elena saying,
Yes, Elena.
"Hi, Bobby," and she loves the story about Gunsmoke.
Yeah.
Now Franco says, "Ceasefire. The early bar scene is the best." Let's talk about that because we talked a little bit about the physicalness in a bar scene, something like that. How do you prepare for that? Is that like more physical? I mean, it's obviously choreographed, right? I'm assuming it's just like today where they choreograph any fight scenes. Um,
It wasn't
is
a
it?
fight scene in Ceasefire. It was just Don and I sitting at a table. And it was at
Oh,
a very high level of
oh, the
drunkenness.
early bar scene, right. I meant
Yeah.
I just added fight for myself.
No, that's fine. But it was just a scene where we were both just blasted on booze. We're gone.
Right.
And I telling them a story about Vietnam. And these guys, sometimes they don't like to get into it. They don't want to talk about it. And I did a lot of homework, a lot of research with these guys. I talked to those guys. I had guys that thought I was there.
Yeah.
And I gave talks. They really appreciated my performance because it was sort of like saying that was their thing. I had guys that thought I'd been there. They even gave me a plaque. It's embarrassing. They gave me a plaque, honorary steward, honorary Vietnam vet. I have a plaque that says that.
Wow, that's a tremendous honor, though.
Yeah, it is. It's just wow. I mean, I was like, I had to. I explained this to a friend. I on Facebook and I get a lot of mail. I still get fan mail. I get it from all over the world.
Hmm.
Uh, it's nice. Not I don't get tons of it. But recently I got some from France. And I got a lot from Germany. And I had a wonderful man who turned out to be a retired captain from the Navy who wanted my autograph and what have you. What? He says, "Yeah, it seems strange, but you see, when you're on a ship, an awful lot of movies come through and television shows. And on their downtime, that's what they're doing." And I went, wow. He said, "Well, just love your work." And I have two retired Navy captains who are like friends of mine.
That is
That
so
funny?
awesome. That's so awesome. So I have
I love it. Yeah, go ahead.
Lester Green says, "How does someone work with Robert F. Lyons?" Ah, okay.
I'm a charmer. I'm easy. I am. I'm really easy. I never try to overshadow an actor or work with him. Depends on what's going on.
Yeah.
It's when he says, "How do you work with him?" I'm assuming if we were in a scene, how would you work? Is that I start off real easy. I get on the set, and what I'll do if in the scene, I say, "Hey, can we just talk the words and see what's going on?" And what I'm really doing is sizing up the other actor. What are they bringing to the table? What's their style? How do they do it? Are they really with me? And just say the words. And based on that, now I know where to cut loose and alter any other things that I need to do to set myself up.
Right.
I've already know what I want to do, and I can accomplish that. But now I want to see if this guy's feeding me, or this girl is, or not, or do I have to go around something they're doing? It depends on who you're playing with.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things you meet up with.
Is it difficult when you're so prepared and then you come on set and you have to now kind of almost try to lift somebody up because they're not really bringing their A game?
uh,
You don't have to
yeah,
name any names.
yeah. I won't name any names, but yeah, I had one. Yeah, I had a beauty once, really. Yeah, but by that time I was so grooved in that I could then take responsibility for somebody else who didn't know what they were doing. I had to
Mm,
hold a girl on her mark.
hold
Um,
her, like
yeah.
physically move her to the mark.
Oh, it was a difficult scene. Hold her physically on the mark. Speak a foreign language, which I don't. It was written in French. And what it is a scene from a movie we made in Hawaii called Waikiki. It was a movie of the week to become a series, which it never became. And I was playing a bad guy, and my ex roommate. We were playing brothers. We finally got to work together,
Mm,
and they're killer rapists throughout the entire movie. And this gal just created so much problem
mm,
that to hold her on the thing and then speak French. And I had to hold her in frame, which I know how to do now. I know how big a frame is. I know how much room I've got to move around in. You wouldn't think so with this particular setup that we're doing
right.
now, because I'm moving all over the place. But there, I could do it,
Yeah.
and I did. And you know, well, it's just interesting. I had to hold her onto it
Yeah. Yeah.
and keep her in place. But I
Yeah.
had that a couple times.
Well, now here's the funny thing. Mr.
So
Green would like to see us in a film. It could be a comedy. Hey, you know what? Let's have our management companies talk and see if they can find a script.
if I could bring some humor to a scene, I like it. But usually, people don't look at me as a comedy actor.
Well, that's funny because I mean, how about the straight man? Like there's so much comedy, and when you look at the history of comedians, you can be
Yeah,
a straight man. It reminds me of Leslie Nielsen a little bit, like towards the end of his career, where he
it was.
where he
He
had this he
became
was had this amazing dramatic actor for so many years, and suddenly he completely does a 180.
that was amazing. That was funny stuff.
That was so amazing that he was able to do that with such a straight because he played it like he was playing like he was always been playing it
Yeah, straight. Yeah,
completely straight. It's so funny.
yeah.
Um, who were the legendary act? Oh, I shouldn't say legendary, but who were the actors that you looked up to as you were in Hollywood and coming up?
Um, well, there were three that, to me, at that time, and I think a lot of actors look at the same one. There was Dean, Brando, and Clift. Those were
Mm,
the guys that you try to emulate, not to be like them, but to copy them, but to learn from them. I think
yeah,
that's it. You're
yeah,
welcome.
just to yeah.
Yeah,
So Brando was such a phenomenon.
unbelievable.
You
You
know,
can
I mean,
watch, and learn this guy.
yeah, so amazing. So, Robert, I want to thank you so much for giving us your time. It's been such an honor to talk to you. I definitely would love to have you back. I feel like we scratched the surface of so much information, but I would love to have you back at some point for sure. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you. And stay safe, and let's talk soon.
Thank you very much, John Henry. I
All
enjoyed
right.
it very much.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. So I feel like I could have just kept going and going and going, but I was like, I can't. But we'll definitely have him back because, like I said, it just scratched the surface on somebody who just really has been there and has been doing it for such a long time. It's just a great wealth of knowledge. So I want to thank Robert for being on. I want to thank everybody here who participated. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you all tomorrow night, Saturday night, 9:30. I'll be back live again right here. So thank you very much. And as always,